Hi there, my name is Lara Waldman and I'm a healer and a freedom coach. And today I'd like to speak to you about the number one practice that leads to a fulfilling life. Now, what is that? Well, this is something that most of us find really uncomfortable and that we have created a lot of protection around and that we've hidden away. And that is vulnerability. Now, I want to share that vulnerability is something that I've found personally very challenging in my life. For a lot of my life, I would describe myself as being more in the masculine, more in the warrior, from a very young age up until probably my mid-20s. And I had a lot of defense mechanisms and protection around my vulnerability. I had no idea this was going on, obviously, at the time, but now, in retrospect, I can see that's what was happening. And on my healing journey, on my path to self-discovery, on my spiritual path, I've been slowly but surely unraveling some of that protection, some of that bulk around me that was designed to protect this vulnerable part of me. And it's something that I still find really challenging. And of course I can see in retrospect that it's shifted and changed over the years. But it's something that I'm still working on as a regular practice, and even more actively than ever before. And I really want to speak to you about this because we crave connection. We crave deep, heartfelt, soulful connection. And yet, in order for us to have that, we need to be vulnerable, which also means being willing to feel uncomfortable feelings like, sadness or rejection or fear, all sorts of uncomfortable feelings. So we have this conflict between yearning for connection and deep connection and deep and meaningful relationships, and yet we don't want to feel the uncomfortable feelings that can go along with that. I've been reading this great book that I recommend called Daring Greatly by Brené Brown, and Brené Brown is an expert in vulnerability. She researched the subject for 12 years. So I really recommend checking her out. She's got a TED Talk called The Power of Vulnerability, and having a look at her book. It's really fantastic. So if you've been feeling kind of lonely or unfulfilled in relationships, cut off from the world or separate from the world around you, then this is definitely an area for you to look at. And as Brené says, that none of us can escape this. This is just something that we all need to face, really, that it's something that is for every single human being. And some people are more willing to be vulnerable than others. And if you've had hurt or pain or trauma from the past, or you've had relationships where you did make yourself open and vulnerable and then you were hurt as a result, you may have made choices to shut down and to never do that again. I know I did. It's not safe to open. It's not safe to show who I am in the world because someone will hurt me. And so it's that, that taking the risk to show up in the world, knowing that you could feel feelings of hurt or feel feelings, of vulnerability. The thing is that the importance of vulnerability is what I'm really learning and kind of grasping on a deeper and deeper level is the more that you're willing to show up as you in this vulnerable space, the more open you are to receiving. So all that protection, all of that armor that you have built up to avoid yourself feeling uncomfortable feelings not only keeps out the quote-unquote bad stuff, but it also keeps out the good stuff. Like, for example, deep, heartfelt relationship, or, financial abundance, or, health and happiness. So in order for more of the good stuff to show up, in order for us to receive what our heart and soul truly are asking for, we need to drop the armor. which means we need to show up in our vulnerability. So there are a huge amount of gifts that come from vulnerability, have come from dropping the armor. But as well, it will mean feeling uncomfortable feelings. So I found personally that this is an ongoing practice. This is something that, like, I personally find goes deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And perhaps there is no end to this well of vulnerability. But what I have learned is that people connect to that. People feel safe around vulnerability. I'm not talking about, we've really misidentified vulnerability as weakness. So, but in someone opening their vulnerability, there is huge, huge strength in that. And that's what I see, what I observe in others. And I observe when, my clients, I'm working with healing with them, and it's all about vulnerability. It's all about removing the blocks and the barriers and showing up in the world as they truly are and letting the tears come, letting the feelings be there. And when I'm holding the space for other people to drop into their vulnerability, I just see so much strength, so much courage, and it's so beautiful. And yet when you're the one feeling vulnerable, it can feel like weakness. It can feel, well, it just doesn't feel good. And yet other people are much more responsive to people showing up in their vulnerability than not. When people have got their guards up and their blocks and barriers, there's an automatic feeling of mistrusting that person. So your vulnerability and your willingness to show up in vulnerability allows other people in. It allows other people to get close to you. And yeah, it is risky business. This relationship stuff, is risky in that we may have some feelings we have to feel. But it also makes space for all the amazing parts to show up as well. So I'm talking about relationships mainly, but this is the same with your finances, it's the same with your vitality, your energy levels, it's the same with your emotional well-being. It affects all areas of your life. So what I'd like to invite you is to a really simple practice that I've been using recently that I find really powerful, which is when you have an emotion come up, let's say anger or fear or self-doubt, there's some kind of reaction in your body. Stop for a moment and just ask. You might even want to close your eyes and say, where is the vulnerability here? Where is the vulnerability here? And that immediately helps you to drop out of the reaction and feel. And like I said before, it might not be that comfortable, but it's amazing to see what that default reaction, what it's protecting you from feeling. Because that default reaction is your front line. So that's the emotion that you're more comfortable with. For some people it's depression, for some people it's anxiety, for some people it's anger. Or getting really tired suddenly. That was one that I did a lot. Where is the vulnerability here? And then feel. And feel into what that is. Allow that feeling to be there. And I said, it's not going to be comfortable, but it creates space and it allows that armor to drop. It allows the armor to drop, and it allows more of what you're truly asking for to come in. So this is a practice, and not a comfortable one, but one that is so, so worth it. So I really recommend getting Brene Brown's book, Daring Greatly, checking out her TED Talk on YouTube. And this is something that I help clients to do. I help people to drop into their vulnerability, to release the protection, to bring down the walls and barriers that are protecting you from you. And the truth of you really wants to come out, because that's the essence of who you are, and from my point of view, the gift that you truly are for this world. So if you need any help with connecting to your vulnerability, please feel free to contact me. I'd be really happy to hear from you. And until then, I look forward to speaking to you again in the future.